Hey, so this is a video of me explaining the conjunction of the South Node Ketu and Mars in your birth chart and what happens when they come together. So this is a pretty relatively simple placement and conjunction to explain. It's pretty straightforward. So briefly going over what is the South Node. South Node represents your past life experiences, the things you already experienced and dealt with in your previous past lives. And because you already dealt with this area of your life, you have no desire to really deal with that area again, or you might express it and experience it, or desire to experience it in a different way because you already dealt with it the same type of way in the course of several past lives, which is why the South Node and also the North Node are. This is why Rahu, who is the North Node, and Ketu is the South Node, represent a foreign energy, a foreign element. One, because they are shadow planets. They're not a physical planet. They're something otherworldly. They're something that you can't perceive with your eyes. And because, at least for the South Node, it represents things you already dealt with and experienced. So therefore, you are bored of them and you want to experience something different. At least for the South Node. I don't feel like explaining Rahu. We'll talk about Rahu when I do my Rahu conjunctions. But that's essentially what Ketu is. The cumulative past life experiences. And ironically, the planet that's closely associated and related to the South Node Ketu is in fact Mars. They're both very fiery in nature. And they both have a separative nature to them, a cutting nature to them. You see, K2 is very spiritual. It can separate you or detach you from the material things of this world, which is why K2 is known as a moksha karaka, which means liberation. It wants to give you spiritual liberation from the material things. It's trying to tell you that, you know, it wants you to experience something more than your material worldly pleasures and desires and stuff. Rahu, the North Node, is more concerned about making new desires and obtaining great levels of success. And Ketu is like, well, I've already done with all this stuff. I want to experience something different or spiritual or higher. So Ketu is cutting and separative in the metaphorical sense, where it'll separate you from the material things. While Mars can be separative in the literal physical sense. It's a planet that's associated with competition and courage, firearms and weapons and fighting and all that stuff. So Mars, in the literal sense, can inflict pain and injuries and stuff upon you. Mars originally rules the first and eighth house. The first house being your forehead and your physical body overall, and the eighth house deals with the sexual organs, but the eighth house is also seen for like surgeries. And 8 places from the 8th house is the 3rd house, which is the hands. So 3rd and 8th house, you know, can sort of be seen for surgeries. And Mars is also a karaka, a significator of the 3rd house, because the 3rd house is associated with your courageousness and your bravery. So Mars is a significator of your courage, of how brave you are, you know, your fighting ability. By examining your Mars, your 3rd house, your 3rd lord, and your D3 chart, aka your Drachna chart, you can sort of assess and see how brave and courageous the fighting ability of someone by looking at that house placement and looking at that divisional chart. So yeah, Mars is also a significator of male friends and brothers. It's a significator of land. Mars is a significator of land. And that's essentially what all the things that Mars is a significator of. I'm gonna make sure I'm not really missing nothing important. I'm looking at my phone. But nope, Mars is, yeah, like I said, courage, your drive, competition, firearms and weapons, and land. So what happens when these two come together? Well, two really distinct things could happen when Mars and Ketu come together, and it really depends on the sign and nakshatra that will determine which end of the spectrum you'll experience. On one side, with Ketu conjunct Mars, someone could be very violent. Why would someone be very violent? Well, K2 conjunct Mars is like, okay, it shows I've already experienced things in relation to Mars over the course of my several past lives. I already was violent. I've already had male friends. I already had siblings. I already was skilled at fighting and killing. And I don't feel like dealing with it no more in this lifetime. But if I do have to use those skills, if my life is threatened, if someone does piss me off, because I don't feel like fighting, I'm going to make sure I kill them. If I do have to get into a fight, I'm going to make sure I put them down so I don't have to fight no more. That's what K2 and Mars can do on one spectrum. Because you see, K2 is headless. It doesn't have a head. You know, so it doesn't think logically. It thinks irrationally. So K2 could be like, you know what? I do not want to fight no more. Because I've already dealt with fighting over the course of several past lives. I don't want to fight no more. But if someone fucks with me, I'm going to put them in the ground. So this could make someone maybe lash out and just act out violently for no reason. Like a mass shooting or a stabbing. They just go to the extreme for no reason. Why did you have to go to the extreme? The situation wasn't that necessary for you to go to that great length. But K2 and Mars conjunction could possibly do that. Another thing that K2 Mars conjunction could do on the spiritual side, because the other spectrum of this conjunction is that it's like, you know what? I've already dealt with fighting and all this stuff. I don't want to use my energy no more for those type of things. Instead, I want to use my energy towards doing other things aside from inflicting violence in sports and competition. I might want to go and direct my energy to cooking. Instead of cutting someone, I want to cut some food. I want to direct my energy towards yoga and meditation and dancing and what other things, what other non-violent forms of self-expression and exerting my energy. K2 Mars conjunction could possibly do that. A K2 Mars conjunction could just make someone potentially not have a desire to want to fight and be violent. Because, like, you know, I already dealt with this. I already done this before. And K2, like I said, is headless. It doesn't have a head. So on one side, it might be like fighting. Why do I want to fight? Or how should I respond to this situation? Should I stand up and fight for myself? Because, you know, let's say that you have a K2 Mars conjunction and you get bullied in school. Or you just get bullied and people mess with you and you don't defend yourself. And to the world, you look crazy. It's like, why isn't he fighting back? Oh, he's weak. Oh, she's soft. But K2 represents a foreign element. It's otherworldly. It doesn't think logically. It's not confined to social societal norms. So K2, you know, could be like, they might think that I'm weird, but I don't see nothing the matter with me not wanting to fight back or whatever. Or I don't know how to fight back. I don't know why I should. You know, K2 is headless, so it's a many different ways and directions I could go to this. So ultimately, to see what direction this conjunction will take you, you gotta see what sign and nakshatra the planets are in. If the conjunction is maybe in like more so an assertive sign, like Aries and Kritika, or maybe Capricorn and Denista, or I'm trying to think of maybe another aggressive or assertive nakshatra, or maybe Scorpio and Jyeshtha. If this conjunction is like in signs and nakshatras like that, then maybe the person will be very assertive and aggressive potentially. Maybe they will act out irrationally and strike. And then if it's in maybe a spiritual sign, like Pisces, for a great stereotypical example, they might want to direct their energy towards more so spiritual things, you know, or non-violent forms of expression of their Martian qualities and energy versus wanting to inflict damage. And you know, since Mars is a karaka of land, maybe if Mars is like your fourth lord or connected to your fourth house in some way, shape, or form, either through like maybe your birth chart or your D4, and K2 has some type of role to play with your Mars, we could possibly see during the Mahadasha, or the planetary time period of your Ketu in or Mars, you might experience a loss in land, because Mars is also a significator of land and or debt, and Ketu wants to separate you from the material things of this world. So this conjunction of Ketu and Mars, depending on how it might be placed in your chart, it could also make you experience a loss of property, a loss of fixed assets, potentially. Or a Ketu Mars conjunction could make you spend a bunch of wealth, you know, because like I said, Mars is like a significator of debt also, I believe. And Ketu is liberation and separation from the material things. So you might spend money frivolously, not caring about its value or quality or whatever. So it can make you incur a lot of debt also. And just naturally, you might not care to have a lot of male friends with this conjunction. Or you might not care for your male siblings with this conjunction. Your views on fighting and war and competitions might be different. If it's on the aggressive, if the conjunction falls in more so of a masculine, aggressive sign and nakshatra, then you might have weird views on maybe. I mean, you're gonna have weird views regardless, but you might have a weird view, a weird, twisted, psychotic view on violence and war. You know, and I can't really think of no examples, but you should be able to come up with a bunch of things in your mind if you understand how I broke down this conjunction. You could probably, oh, I understand what this conjunction could possibly do. And then, yeah, that's essentially it. This conjunction can make you twisted when it comes to maybe all the things in relation to Mars if it's on the aggressive side. And if it's on the spiritual side, you might have a more so of a hippie, detached spiritual view. But yes, I can't drag this video out too much longer because this conjunction is pretty simple and pretty straightforward. And like I said, you really gotta look at the sign and nakshatra. You gotta see what is the dispositor of Ketu, because when it comes to the North Node and South Node, they will greatly behave like the sign that they're in and the planet that rules their sign, because these are planets, North Node and South Node, Rahu and Ketu. They are shadow grahas, shadow planets. They do not produce their own light. They reproduce a great deal of who they are. Their personality is greatly influenced by other people, by other planets, by other suns. So if Ketu falls into Capricorn or Aquarius, then it's going to be greatly influenced and behave in a bit of a Saturnian way. If it falls into a Mercurial sign, you know, Virgo or Gemini, then it's going to behave a little bit like Mercury. If it I don't gotta go for all the goddamn signs, but you get what I'm saying. But I'll see you when I make my next video, and I hope this simple video gave you clarity and insight on the two different paths and ways that you could go when it comes to Ketu and Mars conjunction.